Get ready, Marana. Our Northwest Fire District and Marana Police Department are stepping up to the plate for a friendly game of softball at this year's National Night Out. Come out and meet your first responders on Friday, September 26th at Crossroads at Silver Bell District Park from 5 to 9 p.m. The game starts at 6. It's gonna be a home run!
There's a lot of stuff going on in the town of Marana, and we want to make sure that our community is well aware of it all. So we're going to be having some community conversations, and we're going to talk about 3 different topics. Those 3 topics are the RTA Next, which is a very important transportation initiative that will be voted on by the voters next March, as well as the growth in Marana. And then lastly, we're going to talk about data centers as well. So you can join us at any one of 3 locations. The first one's going to be at the Marana Aquatics and Recreation Center, also known as the Mark. And you can join us there on Tuesday, September 23rd at 5:30. Also at the Coyote Trail Elementary School in the cafeteria. And that one's going to be on Wednesday, October the 1st at 5:30. Followed by our last one, which will be in Dove Mountain at the C-STEM School, K through 8. Wednesday, October the 8th, also at 5:30. So if you want to stay in the loop, join us for a community conversation at one of those 3 locations, and we'll see you there. Welcome to Real Talk with the Town, where I sit down with Marana staff to answer your burning questions about our beautiful community. My name is Terry Roseman. I'm the town manager for the town, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Talk with the Town. My name is Terry, and I am your host. And today we're going to be talking about whether or not data centers might be on the horizon for the town of Marana. And today I have 2 of our resident experts because they put together a ordinance, which we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But I got Jason Angel, our Development Services Director, and Jane Farrell, our town attorney. Welcome to the podcast once again. They've been on here multiple times. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah. So, icebreaker. It's football season. I got to talk about it. I can't help myself. Although I have to tell you, I'm going to eat some crow here because just this last Sunday was a very sad day for me because the Lions played the Packers in Lambeau Field.
Beautiful game.
It was a beautiful game, says Jason Angel. Jason, why was it so beautiful for you?
I'm a Packer fan.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we let that get by in the background, but it did happen.
But I was kind enough to not text you on Sunday.
Which I really appreciate. It was the first thing he brought up, though, in the Monday morning meeting that we had.
Yes.
So, yeah. Yeah, it was a tough game for the Lions. Maybe a tough season. I don't know. We had a great one last year. But I have to admit, the Packers look really good. Jordan Love looks strong. Yeah. So, Jane, who's your team? Who are you rooting for? She's a Broncos fan.
Denver Broncos are my favorite team. Yep. Yeah. They didn't look overpowering anyway the first week.
They pulled off the win, though.
They did, yep.
Yeah. And in week 1, you just got to take that and run with it.
Right.
Be happy with it.
Yep.
So I'm just clinging to the fact that maybe after week 1 we'll get better.
Can't get worse.
It's a question. Yeah, can't get worse. Probably not much worse. But hey, all right. So NFL aside, we're here to talk about data centers, and it's become a pretty hot topic out there in not just our region or in our state, but across the nation, and certainly kind of culminated recently with a project happened just to the south of us, or was trying to happen in Pima County here. And people have been asking, because our name keeps coming up, are they coming into Marana? But before we get to that, let's talk about what a data center is. Somebody got like a textbook definition?
Terry,
Go to Jane. All right.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of a technical answer, but then kind of say what that means. Part of our data center ordinance that you mentioned says that a data center is a facility that houses computer or network equipment and associated components, and it's related to digital data operations. But what does that mean? It's basically a series of buildings on a site that has a bunch of computers in it. That's basically what a data center is. And it is, those computers are used for hosting data on the cloud when we talk about the cloud.
So the cloud isn't like really a cloud then? Is that what you're telling me?
That's right. It's
totally burst my bubble there, man. All the time I thought all this information was just floating around in the Ethernet somewhere. but it's actually stored on the physical computers. All those pictures that you take, all those documents that you write, all of those things.
Medical records, all
Medical records, you name it. It's all in those computers, in those data centers. So I recently heard that these data centers are crucial infrastructure. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, given where technology is going and how the world has evolved, everything has become more dependent upon technology, from robots being used in everyday businesses and things of that nature to the phone that everybody lives on, right, and carries in their pocket.
Yeah. So if we don't want data centers, we got to check our phones and get rid of our computers, it sounds like.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, okay. The possibility of them coming to Marana, what do you put the percentage at, likelihood? You got any idea?
I wouldn't say there's a certain percentage.
Okay.
You know, I think the way that we've approached this is that it's allowed us as a community to consider them and determine whether or not it's a right fit for us. That's it.
So I really like what you just said there, Jason, to consider whether it's a good fit for us. And I think the town has done some really good things. And that's what I want to focus on right now, because we started hearing rumblings about this, the potential for data centers in southern Arizona close to a year ago, maybe 9-10 months ago, something like that. And people started making inquiries about data centers. And we didn't feel like we were well positioned and prepared for something like that. And so and when I say we, not really me, because I didn't do anything, but primarily the two of you and a group of other people, but primarily the two of you put together an ordinance. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about why an ordinance and then kind of what the ordinance does for the town.
I would just say, to answer your question earlier, and I wouldn't put a percentage on it either, but I think there's a high likelihood that data centers are coming to southern Arizona because we don't have those large-scale data centers in southern Arizona, whether it's Marana or where.
So they almost have to.
So they are coming.
They're going to have to be here. We're a population of over 1 million people. So that infrastructure has to be here in order to support the people that live in Pima County.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
So,
okay. First of all, let's talk about, Jane, why don't you answer why an ordinance? Why did we go the route of creating an ordinance?
So actually, I think Jason and I and a couple other people started talking about an ordinance more than a year ago when we started getting a few just inklings of data center talk around the area and just in the country of what we were hearing in the country up in the Phoenix area. We were talking about it and saying we really need to decide, number one, where in Marana would these go if we wanted to have them as a use in the town, and that's an if. What is a good location? And I want to give credit to our former planning manager, Steve Cheslak, who was in those meetings, some of those very early meetings. He's retired now, but it was his idea to say, well, we want to give that control to the council of where they go. Rather than saying we're going to permit them in a particular zone, like allow them in our industrial zoning districts or allow them in commercial or wherever. Let's say you have to come in and get a rezoning to a specific plan that council has to approve, and then we have complete control over where they go. So that's why.
Fantastic. That is a beautiful answer, and I think it's very comprehensive in terms of explaining to our residents why we put an ordinance in place. And I like what you said. It gives complete autonomy, perhaps, to the council to be able to decide where, when, if, right? All of those things that are very important, they have the ability to make those decisions based on the ordinance that you guys created.
That's correct. And by not including them as automatically approved uses or permitted uses, the council also has discretion to say no. And we felt that was really important.
That's a really good position for us to be in.
Right.
Thank you for doing that. That's very helpful. Now, Jason, I'm going to pop over to you here for a minute because you just recently attended a development conference. What was it?
State planning conference.
State planning conference. And Marana actually got a shout out from one of the larger jurisdictions in the Phoenix Valley area. I don't know if I should say which one.
Yeah.
I guess we can. I mean, It was Mesa, right? They gave us a shout out because they said that right now Marana stands as the only jurisdiction that they're aware of that actually put an ordinance in place ahead of time?
Yeah, that has an adopted ordinance specific to data centers. They weren't aware of any others that were either recently adopted or close to being adopted, but others are starting to look at it. So yeah, we got a shout out for the work we did on it.
And now people are calling us, asking us about our ordinance.
Correct.
Hey,
yeah.
are we trailblazers here or what?
Yeah, we've actually gotten quite a few. I know Jane herself has also gotten some calls from our counterparts in other jurisdictions that are saying, what did you do? How did you go about this? And it's not proprietary what we're doing. So we're always happy to share the information, what we learned and how we went about it. And, we're very confident in the approach that we took in developing that ordinance and think it's really put us in a great position.
Yeah, I love that. And people don't understand or know, I know, because I talk with you guys about this often, the amount of time, energy, and effort, research that went into this over months and months and months to put this thing together. And again, I think the beautiful thing for us is it puts us in the driver's seat relative to data centers in our community. So now let's talk a little bit about what's required. If a data center wanted to come into the town of Marana, what's kind of the process for that? How does that start?
You know, the way that the ordinance is written, and we joked about it in going through the process, we call it a very specific plan because we have a specific plan process for a standard zoning process to go through. But in this case, if for a data center, they have to provide an extensive amount of detail that you normally wouldn't see in a standard specific plan. We're talking about sound studies. We're talking about electrical service providers providing a commitment as part of that. If water is being utilized for a cooling system, they have to provide a letter that shows where the water source is coming from. And the reason for that, as we all know here, is that the ordinance is written specifically that Marana Water will not use their potable water system or drinking water to serve the cooling system. We made that perfectly clear in our ordinance that that's not allowed. Then we get into architectural requirements. We get into buffer requirements. So I would say we're talking about an investment of several hundred thousands of dollars just to put in an application for consideration.
Wow, I'm going to bounce back to something you said relative to the potable or drinking water, right? And what a great move on the town of Marana to make sure that anybody that comes here understands you're not using our DAWs, our designated assured water supply, to water cool your facilities. Now, my understanding is a lot of these data centers are going away from water cooled, but even if they wanted to use water cooled, they couldn't use our water to do that.
Correct. That is explicitly stated within the ordinance that it will not be allowed.
Okay, so I think that's a really great thing for people in our community to know, because I know many people are very concerned about water shortages, water supply, availability of water for the future, sustainability, all of those things, and they should be, right? So the town has put that in place. Great to have that in our ordinance. So let's talk a little bit more about anything related to the permitting process and what might be required from, the construction of the buildings, anything about the makeup, the appearance of the buildings, anything like that.
So when we were starting to work on the ordinance, as I mentioned earlier, the number one thing was location. Where do we want to allow these? And as I said, we decided to let the council decide that. But the other issues that we were talking about and were the forefront of our mind with this ordinance, the power issues that we've discussed, electricity, the water issue, those were important issues for us. And the water one, was fairly simple to just say you can't use our drinking water for a cooling system. So that kind of addressed that issue pretty succinctly. And then the other issues that we were concerned about were noise. And what these buildings were going to look like. What are these sites going to look like?
Are you going to use the word?
Fenestration.
Oh, there it is. Fenestration. That became like the word of the month or months for several months. Fenestration.
Yes. And I don't have the dictionary definition of it, but it's basically placement of windows and other types of recesses and outcroppings and doors and those types of things, mostly windows, to break up a building. So it's not just a big white box sitting out there in the desert. But those were the things we were looking at. We have pretty robust site design standards that are built into the ordinance.
Setbacks, is
setbacks,
that a portion?
like how far from other properties the data center buildings can be, requirements for buffers and landscaping and those kinds of things, what kind of fencing can be there. And then on top of it, another section that deals with architectural standards, where we're trying to we do require that fenestration and different types of elements that can be more aesthetically pleasing to make these look like nice campuses and not just the big white box in the middle of the desert.
Okay. So it seems like you guys have thought of a lot. Talk a little bit about why do you think data centers are interested in Marana?
I think aside from what Jane said earlier is, the Tucson market is currently not served by large data centers, and the population and the demands that are here are something that are drawing the interest from that market. The other side is the state of Arizona provides a great deal of incentives to try and attract these to our state. Actually, the Phoenix market is the second most dominated market in the entire country as far as data centers.
Isn't it something like 40-something?
That sounds right, 40-something. But
that they have in the Phoenix Valley area.
So the ACA, Arizona Commerce Authority, provides some great incentives for this industry to come in as far as tax rebates and things of that nature. So that's why they're looking here partly. The other part is what we've come to understand through our extensive research and learning way more about data centers than we ever thought we would.
We're gonna bestow on both of you a PhD in data centerology.
Yeah, exactly. There was a time where Jane and I were very happy to take a break from looking at data centers for a while.
Yes.
But to your point, it's the climate that is here. It's a dry desert climate that doesn't have a lot of humidity. It's the power supply that exists in this part of the country, not just in Arizona, but in the southwest states. That is a reliable source for them. It's also the fact that there isn't a lot of natural disasters that occur in this part of the country. So we're not worrying about earthquakes,
no tornadoes, all of that. If the Arizona Commerce Authority is offering big benefits to this industry to come here, there's got to be a benefit somewhere in there. What are some of those benefits?
So the Arizona Commerce Authority, as Jason alluded to, it gives some tax breaks on the actual computer equipment that's housed within these buildings, these data centers. But there are other taxes that can flow to a community from a data center. And the biggest one would be utility taxes, which the town has, I believe, a 4% utility tax
That's
in
correct.
our tax code. And so all of the power that they're going to be using, electricity, and if they use water, a data center uses water cooling or other uses of water at the facility, those will also be taxed at the 4%. So that can be a significant source of ongoing revenue, the utility taxes that the town would recognize from a data center. Construction sales tax is another area that the town could benefit. Now, that's only one time. That's during the construction of one of these projects, although most of them are phased over a number of years. So it's a one time, but it's kind of a long time.
A long time, one time.
And they're billion-dollar projects. So the construction sales tax that the town would look at receiving could be significant from that. If in some cases the developer is a property owner who leases to the actual data center operator, if that's the case, then there's also a rental tax that could come into play.
I think along those lines too, Terry, is the potential for infrastructure improvements that could come to a community. Depends on where they're located, but even though you can't use our drinking water to cool a data center, there's still an operation within the data center that is an office use, bathrooms, restrooms, facilities that will require our potable water to serve them. And so if they're located in a portion in our community that currently doesn't have sewer or water available, and they run the lines all the way out there, it opens up the land between where our lines currently end and where that site potentially is for additional development demands.
Marana has a plethora of available land. We have a lot of farmland, right?
Yes.
And so I think that is certainly something that is appealing because you can put one way out away from residential and it's not going to impact neighborhoods and things of that nature and, kind of create an area that's more industrial. There's a financial impact that we're talking about here, right? I looked a little bit at the numbers from the one that they were talking about, the project down south, and it was the tens of millions of dollars every year in sales tax revenue from utility tax and lease tax and things of that nature that can come into a community. But also impact from over one time, but over a long period of time, jobs for people.
Well, I think depending upon the size of the potential project, I mean, you're talking hundreds of construction jobs, if not thousands, that would be on a particular job site for a period of time. Those would be all within your community, whether those are existing contractors within your community or within your region. That obviously has an impact. If they bring in, say, a specialized contractor from outside, they're still renting hotel rooms or doing things of that nature. But then you'll have the ongoing jobs with a data center. They're not major employers as far as daily operations, right? But you do have the IT staff, the engineers, the technicians, the management staff, the security team, all of that would be, these are 24/7 operations. So those are round the clock,
multiple shifts, around the clock,
365.
people there all the time, working.
So, I mean, we've looked at some of the operations of these facilities up in the Phoenix metro area and, talked to some of the other jurisdictions up there. And, you're seeing anywhere from 40 on the lower end to perhaps 100 plus on the higher end for data center projects, varying in size.
Which is not a high number really relative to the size of the data center campus and the data center buildings. It's not a ton of jobs for the space they're taking up.
Makes sense. So now I want to jump back here to a minute to talk about impact relative to those monies coming into the community. So if we're talking about tens of millions of dollars coming into a particular community, how does that impact a community in terms of what can those dollars be used for? Are they restricted dollars? Are they available to be used for parks, roads? I mean, what kind of things can those monies be used for?
For the most part, they're unrestricted, that the town can use as the town needs to use them to build things that we need, in terms of roads and parks and water lines and sewer plants and that kind of thing. The town itself, we do have, for construction sales tax, we devote 3/4 of what we get from construction sales tax. The town council has passed a resolution that devotes that to a transportation fund. And so we use that for transportation projects within the town. But most of that revenue that would come in could be used as the town sees fit.
Excellent. So we could have a portion of money then that could go to Parks and Recs and impact and improve Parks and Recs activity, our streets and roads, safety, all of those kinds of things.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So we have talked about most everything relative to data centers, I think. But I do want to make sure that we talk about maybe some direct impacts to entities that are not specifically the town of Marana. So what kind of impact would it have, say, to school districts, fire districts, and things of that nature? Obviously, schools, very important for a community. Fire protection, very important for a community. And I believe that there is obviously property tax associated with one of these facilities, one of these campuses. And is any portion of that allotted then to our schools and to our fire districts?
Yeah, I'm a Marana resident. I get a tax bill. I see all the taxing entities that are there. So Northwest Fire District, MUSD, Pima County, the Flood Control District, all of them would stand to gain from a facility going in our jurisdiction because they're the list of the taxing entities that are there. So the ongoing operations, I don't know what their rates are, so I don't know how much they stand to gain, but it's an annual, and given the size of these facilities and the dollars that we've learned that come with them, I would say it's a substantial increase for an industry that doesn't really put a huge burden on those type of operations. When we're talking about, say, 50 jobs being created there on a daily operation, that's not a huge burden to the school district. Even if they're all individual families, that's 100 kids maybe if each one of them had 2 kids with them. Mm-hmm. But most of them typically don't. So it's not a huge burden on the school district as far as enrollment or building a new facility or something like that, but they get a substantial increase in their annual incomes.
Very good. And I can tell you, I'll help you out a little bit here because I did, when we were putting the ordinance together, I did reach out to our school district and to our fire district, talked to the fire chief and talked to Dan Streeter from MUSD. Both of them said the impacts for them are very substantial. I think that is an important thing for our residents to know as well. So any other things that you think we haven't covered here, Jane, Jason, that you think our residents would love to know more about?
I'll just say when we put together this ordinance, just for everyone to understand, we spent just shy of a year on the process of putting that together. So this isn't one of those things that we put together in a week and walked away. We put together several drafts. We became experts in areas that we thought we shouldn't be and then backed away. Mm-hmm. We presented it to council at 2 different study sessions before we even jumped into a hearing process. We allowed for a 45-day public review and comment period and made adjustments off of that. So as much as Jane, myself, Steve Cheslak, and others spent a great deal amount of time, there was a lot of voices that contributed to the shaping of this ordinance. And I think when we were all said and done and going through the process, we were very confident in what we've landed on and how it positions us going forward.
I would agree with that. And to piggyback on it, when we were doing this, we spent a lot of time looking at ordinances from Virginia, because the state of Virginia is, you mentioned Phoenix is number 2 in the country. State of Virginia is number 1 in the country in terms of data center density. And they've been there for a number of years, too. And so they were already in the process. As we were putting our ordinance together, they were kind of in redoing their ordinances because they had gone through ordinances and found out what didn't work, what problems they were seeing, what they needed to tighten up. And they were, I was able to find just a trove of information about, they would hire consultants to review multiple ordinances around the Virginia area and see the pros and cons of each one and make recommendations about each one. And none of which is to say that we just copied something from Virginia, but it was a great discussion. And it was a great discussion to look at. What are the issues with noise, and what would be ways that you can attenuate that noise? So those, just as one example. So that was a big part of our process, and it was just really helpful that they had kind of stumbled a little bit, and we could learn from their mistakes and the stumbles that they made.
Yeah, I so appreciate that the town has thought ahead, and I do believe, as you guys have stated, we're well positioned at this point. In thinking about some of the pushback that's happened recently, a lot of it is centered around water and use of water, and the other is centered around power, the use of power, and residents then bearing the burden of that increase in power. So I don't know if you can speak directly to this, but based on some of the conversations that you've had up to this point, how is all that infrastructure paid for? How was that increase in load accounted for and paid for? Is there any truth to residents then paying higher rates because there's a data center in their community? I realize I threw a lot of questions
Yeah.
out right there.
Which one you want to
But
go
you pick whichever one you want to answer, and then we'll come back to them.
Those are legitimate concerns and not something that I think I can, answer all those questions. But what we can say is what we've heard from the providers, TEP, APS up in the Phoenix area, that their intent is to require the high-end users, the data centers, to bear the costs that go along with their developments, and that they don't want everyday ratepayers to have to see increases because of those data centers coming in and being high-end users. There's been rate cases, or at least a rate case in front of the Arizona Corporation Commission with the potential of raising rates for data centers to make sure that they're paying their fair share. And it's just something that we deal with, even on the town level with infrastructure when we have new development going in, and we want the new development to pay for the things it needs. We don't want the existing community and existing citizens to have to pay for a new subdivision's roads and a new subdivision's water and sewer lines. And so I think that that's what the electrical providers, the power companies, are also trying to do. And
Growth pays for growth.
Growth pays for growth.
Kind of the message there. Then,
Yeah.
So relative to the water issue, and this may be a moot point because they may end up going all air cooled. But one of the things I think that had also interested some of the folks that initially started knocking on our door is the availability of irrigation water. Yeah. And the town would actually stand to benefit if they went water cooled in the sense that right now most of the land that these places would go on is farmland. And that farmland is using a lot of water, right? They use a lot of water to irrigate the crops. Looking at just kind of the size of, for example, of the project to the south going on property up here in Marana, several hundred acres, they would use half the amount of water that's being utilized currently to farm the land as it would to water cool the facility. And the town could then benefit from the recharge of that. So it's not our water source. We could benefit from that recharge and then get storage credits for that recharged water. And we actually benefit from a portfolio standpoint for our water. Now, that may be a completely moot point, but do I understand that correctly? Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, that's my understanding as well of it, is that being able to transfer the water that is, one, reducing it, right? Cutting it from agricultural to a data center operation is a reduction in the amount of water, but taking irrigation water and then ultimately being able to transfer it over to our portfolio is obviously a benefit to us.
Yeah, they would. My understanding is that they actually treat it and then to a quality, a water quality that can then be discharged back into the groundwater system.
Correct.
Well, I think we've covered this pretty well. And I just want to thank you both. Like I said, I'm bestowing on both of you the PhD in data centerology. I don't know if that's an actual degree or not, but
might be soon.
I'm making it up and you guys are both getting it. So really appreciate that. I do want to let folks know that this is an important topic for us. I know it's an important topic for our residents. We plan not only to do podcasts here, but we're going to get out into the public and we're going to have multiple meetings about some of these issues, and those will be coming up very soon. So anything else you want to say in closing here?
I just had one thought. We talked about it right at the beginning about that they would have to go through a rezoning process to a specific plan or a very specific plan. But just what that means is there would be public hearings that we would have to advertise and publish in the newspaper if we got an application that was moving through the process We would publish in the newspaper, post at the property on, multiple locations throughout the town, and there would be public hearings first in front of the planning commission and then in front of the council. So even if an application was moving forward through the process, there's a continual opportunity for information to get out to the public and for the public to be heard as far as that process goes.
Well, you just brought up a very good point. So they have to submit an application. Is that the first step?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. They submit an application. How long does that process take once they submit an application before there might be a public hearing?
Yeah. When we get into a specific plan, there's a little bit more time that's put into a staff review to make sure that it's a complete application and that they've addressed everything. And in this ordinance, they have to address quite a few things. So I would say application comes in, we're going to look at something that's probably going to be 45 to 60 days before we look to schedule that meeting before the plan commission. This is assuming everything's clicking along and they're returning comments and all that right away. We would then advertise that notice. They also have to conduct their own neighborhood meeting. That is a requirement of our code. As Jane said, we also post signage on the property notifying of a public hearing for that. They would then go to Plan Commission. After Plan Commission, then we go, typically, an application would go the second council meeting after that Plan Commission meeting. So you would be another, say, 30 days after that.
So at the end of the day, as we think about data centers, the pluses, the negatives, it's going to be up to our council. And our council, I'm confident, is going to make a decision based on what is going to be good for our community. And that's what it boils down to. Is it good for us? Is it not good for us? If it is, it's probably going to happen here in Marana. If it's not good for us, it's probably not going to happen here in Marana. All right. Well, good. Anything else you want to add before we close out here?
I think so.
All right. Good. Well, I'm going to let our listeners know that if you want more information, we do have a frequently asked questions page, and you can go to maranaaz.gov/data centers to get those questions. Also, I think you can pick up the podcast there at the same time. All right. Thanks, guys, so much for being with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for joining us time in and time out. Until next time. Submit your questions by visiting maranaaz.gov/realtalk, and we'll answer them right here. To receive notifications for new releases, remember to hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, remember to follow the town on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date on current news and events.